Welcome back to the competitive sports series.
The absolute carnage on this final lap. 4 vibrant lights here in Miami. Can they regain that place?
I cannot believe my eyes.
Who comes out on top? Down the inside into Casio Triangle. This could end in disaster.
Zach Miles taking the lead. It was an all-or-nothing approach for the TF10 team.
And this could be crucial for NBR.
A race to remember with Jeremy Gallagher.
And they are officially the champions of the season.
It does not get closer than that. What a race. What a season. Oh, I'm sideways. Oh, that's brilliant. That's a great start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me sort that one out. Welcome. Ha! I'm the right way now. Brilliant. Welcome back. It is Competitive Speed Series, and it is once again another beautiful day for racing. And it's a beautiful day for the man alongside me. It is the lovely, the Sappytron, the man that is Ben Sapsford, who has come here for his very first Competitive Speed Series appearance. I promise I won't make it too overbearing for you.
Oh, well, happy to be here. So good to do something a little bit different. I was free on a Saturday night, so what's more there to be said? I'm looking forward to some great racing. I've done a bit of my homework. Obviously, we are in the 8th round, so I am going to do a little bit of learning myself as we go through this. But it's awesome to see the Speed Series be as sort of exciting and successful as it is, because I've looked back at the standings, I've looked back at some of the tables, and got some serious talent that we're going to see tonight, as well as having seen throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much knocked it out of the park like a seasoned veteran, but I suppose, as they say, every day is a school day in the wonderful world that is motorsport. But it is absolutely brilliant to have you alongside me for what promises to be an amazing round of action. And, well, we don't have that many minutes until we will be getting underway. We're just waiting on a few more drivers to get into the lobby before we do get all underway. But in case this is your first time joining us, a bit like Ben alongside me, this is your calendar for this week and the rest of the season. We are at round 8 Singapore, which marks the 2/3 point in this season. We've still got China, a mystery round, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi to go. We've got a lot of night races in this calendar, and I cannot lie, I love a good night race. And hopefully tonight is no exception. Those walls, very, very close. It's going to be chaotic, hopefully.
Oh, it's going to be good fun. I mean, I am, as you say, also a fan of night races. I think they bring a certain amount of theatre. Is that the right word? They bring a sort of sense of theatre, and it's a big departure, not just in terms of the actual track layouts themselves, but also with the night conditions. You're dealing with a lot of different factors. You're dealing with different sort of thermal profiles because you haven't got the sun heating up the track. You're dealing with the light where it's coming from different sources. It might change your perspective a little bit. You might have to adjust your approach to apexes. It's all the little things, and to the drivers, they're used to this by now. They have it down to a T. They're already operating at such a high level, but at least for us watching at home, it's important to remember just how different of an experience it is. Not us just watching, but also to be in the hot seat. It takes a few different skills than you would on your typical day race.
Oh, absolutely. Pretty much, yeah, exactly that. It's so different when it comes to night races, and that's why I love them. I think it's all really different, but provides that really difficult and challenge that these drivers really thrive for. I think they always excel when it comes to giving them a challenge. And tonight, absolutely, fingers crossed, no exception. All 20 drivers in the lobby, so we will be getting underway for qualifying in the next couple of moments, but I've just seen the Discord announcement. It's got the sappy emote. Sorry.
Oh,
that's
no.
enough. That's enough to make me completely lose what I was about to do. Let's have a look, though, at the standings as we go into round number 8. TF10 back out in front ahead of FVR, ETA, TTM, and Thomas Anger Sim Racing, rounding out that P5. That battle for P3 really holding up now. P4 teams there really in the fight there for, well, a lot of money. There's a lot of money separating each of those positions, so really worth getting every little bit of fighting you can. AMR, though, aren't far off getting into this battle for P3. They're all the way down in 7th place. That just shows how close that mid-pack is. But Vroom, ABS, and Avizio, they're not out of the hunt either. They're only a few points behind. But TF10, FVR, still very much the favourites out in front. But there is nothing stopping ETA, TTM, and those teams slightly further behind from getting into the fold. It is still all to play for with 5 rounds to go, because tonight is that round 8. Very nice indeed.
Oh, the maths is difficult, but not impossible for some of the likes of the P3 through to P6. Of course, that's where the most tightly fought battle is going to be. For those points, for these 4 teams, ET8, TTM, Thomas Enke, NLR, these guys are really going to be fighting like every point matters, because it does. TF10, FER, they're going to be in a similar boat, but at its core, they've got a breakaway in this championship. They've got over 100 points in their favour to the next closest competitor. So they can afford a little bit of a drop in terms of performance. What they can't afford is a drop to the other team that they are fighting against. So TF10 and FVR, both, as sort of the main protagonists in this championship, they're going to be keeping a close eye on how it stacks up, and a very close eye on those specific tags heading into tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be really good, and I think everyone, including us and including all of the engineers, very much crunching those numbers to keep tabs on every little detail, because every detail does absolutely matter in this championship. You know, we talk about the prize money that's on the line, and, you know, that could be the difference between going home with nothing and going home with, let me load the prize pool up, say they're third. You know, that's the difference between going home with nothing and 75 euros in the back pocket, right? Like, that is, you know, that's huge for these teams. That's what they're fighting for, and that's why when we say every point matters, it absolutely does for these teams, because if they aren't maximising week in, week out, they have one bad result, that completely knocks their chances, and they cannot afford that at this stage in the championship. It's not easy to recover with so few rounds left.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at how much points can be gained or lost over a race. I'm in the position of maybe ET8, TTM. A bad race here isn't just going to knock me down to likes of P6, but it could put me in trouble with going down to P7 and beyond. Again, the teams around them are only going to be benefiting from the mistakes. So those results, round to round, especially in these later stages, they mean absolutely everything here.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be really a hot contest in the heat of Singapore. We were just waiting for one more driver to get into the lobby. Someone had disconnected. I think they're having a bit of issues with their Wi-Fi. But I believe we are getting that driver into the lobby, so we should be very much ready up in the next couple of moments' time. In fact, yes, the ready up signal is being given, so we should be underway for qualifying within the next minute or so. But obviously, Sappy, this is your first time in this championship. Just having a look at the grid tonight, give me a pick for pole position, hot off the press.
That's a tough one. I mean, I'm, of course, coming into this a little bit blind to an extent. As I say, I did do a bit of homework. I do recognise some of the names here that we have out on course, and if I had to give it to any particular drivers, I will be keeping an eye on a couple. I recognise Derbical. I recognise that name. I also recognise a few different drivers on this course, like Tamesh Kokani, Morera. Tristan Derbical has been a very strong competitor from what I've seen in some of the tables. Mark Schluter being at the top of the order and being a real points carrier for TF10. If I had to give it to anyone, though, if I had to put my money on anyone taking pole, well, I don't know. I'm leaning towards Tristan. I'm leaning towards Tristan just because I feel like they're a driver who can make this one work.
You know what? I would totally agree with you. I think that is probably one of the drivers who I would also be hedging my bets on, but hedge our bets on qualifying no longer because we are underway in this qualifying session, 18 minutes ahead of us, and it's a hot contest out the pit lane. No surprises there as, well, pretty much everybody flocking out of the pit lane, getting those first runs underway as soon as possible. Not a surprise when it comes to league racing. Everyone wants to get up to pace and up to speed very quickly. And, well, tonight, absolutely no exception. Aaron Raminguez, first driver out on circuit.
Well, I'm going to try and get the early jump, and a lot of drivers try to get that early banker lap. Just get something in the pocket, get something on the table. If they are going to have a chance to get a solid quali position, they just need to avoid the traffic, and sometimes getting out ahead, as Raminguez is doing here, along with the others behind. So Koya, for example, is running. They're not doing much of the whole tyre warm-up dance. I think they're trying to save as much possible rubber as they can, but they do just need to get a lap under their belts and on the boards at this point.
Yeah, so early doors in the session that getting that first banker on the board is so critical around this sort of track as well. The pressure is always on and the walls are always looming ever closer, especially on that final flying run where you really push the limits of what is humanly possible around this circuit. And Aaron Dominguez, he's a driver who's known to push the limits very much so in these qualifying sessions, always gets a really solid result. What can he manage? He's the first driver to begin a flying hot lap. Let's ride with him as he heads towards turn number 1, taken very nicely, using as much of the track as humanly possible. Absolutely beautiful stuff through there. Now, as we head through turns 4, now turns 5, it's very quick, very fast, very flowing, but a lovely sector 1 to start. He's got a lot to prove in this qualifying.
All right, into turn 7, jumping heavy on the brakes just before the 50-meter board. Swing the car in, ride the throttle on the way out. Looking very smooth here from Raminguez. A little bit of curb hopping, but seems firmly in control of that Haas. That VF24 looking absolutely planted as they make their way down now to turn 10 and through a slightly neutered but still iconic complex here in the second sector. Nicely done through the bridge. A little bit of a wall bump it looked like, although that could have been netcode, as I don't see any visual damage. Either way, DRS is open. 7th gear, 180 miles an hour, jump back on the brakes. Tight right-hander, turn 14. Arc it out a little bit wider, but careful not to cross that white line. Otherwise, you will get an invalidation. Final couple of corners, though, as they head under the bridge. Tight right, then left chicane. Real close to the wall as you can. Make use of the little divot with the sponsors alongside. And to finish the lap, it's a 25-7 for Raminguez. Immediately displaced, however, with Koya, 0.620 just behind, dominating the second sector and really taking a solid time through.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good start to the session for Nick Arrow as well. He's had a really solid season so far, really been getting a lot of points for FER. Good results pretty much every time he's at the circuit, but Could it be another one of many? Guti Balint there, about to cross the line. He can't muster a brilliant lap there. He only goes 13th. And what can FVR teammate Tony Hietala do? He doesn't get a lap time on the board. So he, at the moment, is not set for the rest of sessions, but plenty of time to get a lap on the board. Trisk next across the line for EVE, a team that have really punched above their weight in recent races, not punching above their weight with their first runs there, as it's a disappointing 18th. Room for improvement, though, as the session goes on. Lillian de Herbecourt, the man who we think could be right up there, does go right up there. 4th fastest for the time being. 4 tenths, though, off Nick Arrow. A 1:25.190 to beat. 3 tenths to the next driver, Nando Morea, who, 3 tenths back, got a lot of time to find there. Nick Arrow really out the blocks hot.
Yeah, well, he certainly put down a statement to the rest of the field, and that's going to be a tough act to follow. I'm looking at a bit of the sector-by-sector breakdown. So, Tamas Kokani is going to be your fastest in Sector 1, 25.722, and then Sectors 2 and 3, both dominated by Nick, over a 1/10 of a second to the next fastest runner in those areas of the track. So whatever he's dialed in with that car is working, and it's working very well.
Yes, and a bit of insight from Maximilian Luca, who has said that Nick Arrow was saying he's poor in qualifying around here. I'm not sure quite what he thinks is poor, but that's definitely not a poor start to qualifying. Could it pan out that way in the end? Who knows? But very much a good start to his qualifying session for the time being, as he's in that P1 spot. Good shout out as well to Tomas Unger Sim Racing, who've had a solid opening lap, 5th and 6th there. Can't complain at all there. That is what they need in that battle for P3 to try and keep nice and close and towards the top. Tony Hietala, though, on an out lap at the moment. Can he replicate what his teammate has done? If he can, FVR could be on to yet another masterclass.
Yeah, that is seriously impressive from Arrow, and Hitala being the only driver left to put a time down on the boards means that they currently sit as a bit of an unknown. They might have a bit of an advantage here, considering with everyone having put at least one lap down, they will have a bit of rubber that works in their favour. However, they are about to come into serious traffic, so can they keep their head screwed on as we head into the start of their first proper lap?
Exactly, rounding the, getting into that sector 1, nicely taken, but plenty of opportunity around here. Really see them hugging every single wall. Is that a little wheel bang on the exit? Well, don't want too many of those in your final flying laps, because that will lose you just a bit of pace, just a bit of time. But a decent sector 1 at the moment for Tony Hietala, who now takes it through sector number 2. And all of these corners, a lot of them right-handers, a lot of them very tricky, and got to get on the throttle as early as possible. Maximise the time you can find around here. But it is shaping up to be a good lap so far. He's got a bit of traffic up ahead, though. Got to keep wary of that. But now heading through what used to be the Singapore Sling, but isn't quite as fast or quite as dangerous anymore. But nicely over the bridge now. Opening that rear wing, heading down towards that braking zone. A tricky one to get right, especially on the exit. You see that white line can catch you out, can get you invalidated. But a purple sector 2 for Tony Hietala, who is looking very, very good at the moment. Could be about to go really towards the top of the timesheet. He won't even get caught in that traffic, who's rounding the final corner to begin their flying laps. But Tony Hietala
on target for pole.
Yeah,
he's on target for pole.
He is
got
on
it.
pole. Wow. That's a great start to his qualifying session. What a way to respond to a poor opening lap. Bang in an absolutely beautiful and clinical lap. What a lap.
Well, I looked at the timings for Sector 1 and Sector 2. I saw he was running the fastest out of almost everyone, particularly in Sector 2. And it kind of dawned on me, I think this was going to be a pole lap. So, sorry, cut you off there. But over a 10th gained on his FVR teammate, and over half of a second towards the majority of the field. Immense stuff on display from the FVR duo.
Yeah, indeed. FER always up towards the top, but sometimes they don't end that way. We've had a retirement. That's Pal Vegas there, who has retired on track. Believe that may be due to a mistake, but not quite sure there. But got a few drivers beginning flying hot laps or on flying hot laps now. Mark Schluter, though, does appear to be on a very good lap time at the moment. 2.5 tenths improved. And, well, running in 4th place, that could take him up towards the likes of Nick Arrow and Tony Kietler, who at the moment, obviously, they're locking out that front row. But we've seen it plenty of times before. FER might be 1-2 at this stage in qualifying, but come the end, it can always be a very different picture. Mark Schluter, though, across the line, where can he go? Only improves to 3rd, but 2 tenths gained. Not a bad lap time at all. I'm sure he won't be complaining. However, Nando Morea may be complaining as he's invalidated on his run.
Yeah, a couple of invalidations, a couple of small improvements. Koya up into P5, for example. Small jump there. Conrad Baum just comes across the line for Thomas Inc. Sim Racing and is in to 2nd. So both of the teammates having a little bit of a bump in the standings. A healthy improvement here in quali. And this is where we're going to start to see the teams push a little bit more. Laps are coming down. Rubber has been laid. We're in the final, or say the second to last proper quali run, I think we'll say, as many drivers are now retiring back to the pit lane. Some of them are starting to come out in a couple of minutes' time. But yeah, 2 good runs left in this session, and we're going to see the averages quickly drop to the 0.3s, 0.2s, and as we've seen with Conrad, into the 0.0s. My question is, will we see anyone cross into the 24s? And if so, who will it be?
Oh, it's got to be one of the FER duos, I think, who takes it up there first. But a very good question, and one that I am really looking forward to see if we do get someone who heads into those 1 minute 24s. It's definitely not out of the question. It's going to have to be a very well put together lap, though, to get that over the line and onto the board. But if anyone's going to manage it, I think one of these FER drivers absolutely can manage it. So it's going to be, I think, a really good end to this session. But you got to really give a massive shout out to Conrad Bohm, who's really got in the mix there. That 1 minute 25.092, absolutely spot on, and where he's going to want to be in this session. 6.5 minutes to go. He's going to be a very happy man.
Well, Conrad could have got pole position if they hadn't dropped a little bit of time in that final sector. Sector 1 and 2 were the fastest we've seen this session so far. Hitala only losing out on Sector 2 by 2 single milliseconds. So the margins really are starting to clamp down, tighten down, and the theoretical best is currently just a 0.027. So we've still yet to see the ingredients of a 24.9, but there will certainly be drivers who are pushing ever closer to that goal. A few of them are on track right now looking for such an opportunity. And we will see them start to cross through now. I think we've got one of the Ferraris just finishing their outlap. We've got one of the Kick Saubers, Tomasz Kokani, who is currently mid-run as well. And a few other cars who are pushing around all the same.
Yes, indeed. Aaron Mingus is one of those drivers on a flying lap at the moment. He's all the way down in 13th. That's not where he'd want to be in a qualifying session, especially at this stage with just over 5 minutes left to go. He's known for being up there in that kind of top 5 or higher of the top 10, typically in these qualifying sessions. But at the moment, down in 13th, maybe not what he would want for AMR, especially with his teammate, Alex Lamas, down in 17th. A bit of time, hopefully, on the table and to find over the next couple of minutes for both of the AMR drivers who do really want to maximise every point. And a 4/10th improvement there through the Sector 2 timing split is looking like a solid lap time that could take Aaron Mingus up to about 6th at the moment. But what can he find in this Sector 3? Will he lose? Will he gain? It's really a gamble. Every single corner taken, calculated, and absolutely done to pinpoint perfection for Aaron Mingus, though. Round the final bend, up to 4th. That's a decent lap time. One more run in it for him as well. It could be a brilliant end for AMR if they're able to get a good final run in.
Link it up, make it work. Unfortunately, you had Nick Arrow, who was just behind, invalidated during the second sector. So walking away from that lap in their case, but still plenty to play for. Itala heading into the pits, going to be going for the final run, setting up for that one rather than push it now. Nando Moreira is another driver who is currently out there, but is, I think, on a cooldown. They just currently sat in at P7, and now is going to be that final phase. You can see the majority of the field is in the pits. A couple of drivers who are still out there just cooling down from their previous runs. But this is where it gets spicy. You can see drivers, they've clipped it down to 0.2s, 0.3s. But now is where everyone has to give it 110%. Nothing less as we head into the final 3.5 minutes.
Indeed, nothing less than absolute perfection demanded of these drivers now as Conrad Bohm, a 0.5 improvement in Sector 1. That's a good and solid step in the right direction towards a 1 minute 24 being put on those timing boards as he now slings it through Sector 2 towards what used to be that Singapore sling. And they may as well sling their way through this tricky slalom section here. And now towards the end of that tricky sector, bang on the wall on the exit, but keeping it pointing in the right direction. No damage to the car. Take it as sweet as you like now. Down this little straight. What can it be for Conrad Bohm? It's a purple Sector 2 as well. Nearly a 10th improvement overall. This could be a brilliant and beautiful lap. Just a small improvement here for a 1 minute 24. Could it be TES taking the top honours in qualifying? They would like to in their battle to try and take as many points away from their rivals and put them in their back pocket. What can it be? Up to the line. It is a 1 minute 24. It's a 1:24.979. A clinical lap, a beautiful lap, and one that could secure them pole position, but still 2 minutes left to go. What have the others got in the tank?
Absolutely rapid there. And honestly, a near perfect lap. Didn't see anything wrong with that. Couldn't put a foot wrong and was pushing the limits every step of the way. You got a couple of other drivers who are just going into the pits now, but you can see the flurry of cars now going on their outlaps. This is it. This is time. Final 2 minutes, which means that everyone has got one more run left. I don't think anyone's in a position right now where they're going to be able to double dip on runs. And with this game, at least, you don't really get a benefit from doing so. You can get a bit of fuel burn, but even that is not a strategy you see that much anymore.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be really interesting. Both TES drivers are finished in this qualifying session. Daniel will be at best 7th and Conrad at best 1st. Will he stay there is the question, I think, on everyone's mind now as we are getting towards the end of this session. Luke Mills is the first driver to begin a flying lap in the end of this session, followed by a few other drivers who are on hot laps now. But now we are in that critical moment in this qualifying session. Conrad won't be able to set a better lap time. Neither will Daniel or Guti Balin, who's also retired. Plenty of drivers beginning flying laps now. It is do or die time here in Singapore. Who's going to get caught out in those walls?
Yeah, well, everyone now starting their laps, and you can see they're all going to fire it through. Interestingly, Tristan Derbicourt, currently P20, 26-0, hasn't improved from their initial lap since the start of the session. So I think they've been pushing for perfection, and it just hasn't panned out. Invalidations or otherwise. So now it's going to be, as we said, it's do or die time. Some drivers retiring out, having confidence in both of their drivers. That's both TS cars, that's both NLR cars out of the session. Everyone else, they're going to be going for it one last time and hoping. And especially if I was sat with a TF10 or FER badge right now, hoping that the hubris of the retirees is going to come back to bite them. Unfortunately, Derbicourt, though, has invalidated, so they are going to be slap bang at the bottom of the grid. Marcel Paps has been the first to finish, 25.410, and many more drivers making their way through as we speak. But that is going to be, I think Passy has had a major
at the
issue
final
there
corner,
into the wall.
yeah. And Noah also having an issue out of the final corner as well. So a lot of drivers having issues. Nick Harrow across the line now. He won't improve either. So a lot of drivers struggling at the final stage in qualifying. Theo is on a lap time at the moment. He's towards the back of the order. Aaron Raminguez is on a hot lap as well. Alex Lamas won't improve. Tony Huetler does improve. That's a brilliant lap time to take back pole position. Aaron Raminguez hasn't improved. Lillian de Herbecourt ahead of his brother. So de Herbecourt, scrapping it out. One very much better than the other. Only a few drivers left to cross the line to finish off this session. Luke Mills, who's hosting the lobby tonight, only manages 13th. And then Nando Moreira, I believe the last driver, only goes 9th because he didn't manage an improvement. FVR, Tony Huetler, taking pole position, but it wasn't easy. Tomas Unger Sim Racing really gave them a fight for that one.
They really did, but in the end, FER is going to be walking away strongest out of this quali. First and third, Itala barely pipping pole position by 12 milliseconds here. Immense stuff, but really impressive overall. And there you can see the full board.
Indeed, Tony Huetler, the man on a mission on pole position for this one tonight, followed by Conrad Bohm, Nick Arrow, then Aaron Raminguez, a great qualifying for him, his teammate very far down the order, I believe in 17th, Lillian de Herbecourt, then Chris Bezensky, then Mark Schluter, Daniel, then Nando Moreira, Marcel Paps, Tomas Cockney, then Trisk, Luke Mills, Guti Balin, Alex Lamas, Passy, Paul Vegas, then Theo, and the other de Herbecourt rounding out the back of the grid. Disappointingly so, but what a qualifying that was. That really sets us up for an exciting race, and I cannot lie, I am so looking forward to this one tonight.
It's looking good. It really is looking good. I mean, particularly that fight at the top. I mean, you had such a strong initial statement from Nick. And again, like you said earlier, this is a driver who was claiming they were pretty bad at quali, but they go out and set an initial time like that. You don't just set a time like that and then expect to get away with saying you're bad at quali. But still, seriously impressive. Both the FVR cars, first and third, like we said, they are the team to beat coming out of the quali session. Although Thomas saying get sim racing with the second place, Conrad coming in swinging at the last moment and actually getting 2 of the 3 best sector times, sector 1 and 2. They still hold it up to this point. And in fact, that first sector, they had it by over 1/10 of a second, even compared to Itala.
Yeah, they really did show their class in this qualifying session, and I think that's what makes me so excited for this race. Every driver really had to give it their all over those 18 minutes. They may not have got the result they wanted, whether that be due to invalidations, crashes, or what have you. But now they've got a race, and a long race at that, to try and now show what they can muster between now and that all-important checkered flag come the end of it. And I think it's going to be really difficult to pick someone for the win. Sure, there aren't many overtaking opportunities, but where there's a track, they will make overtaking opportunities because that is how good these drivers are.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're looking at some key points that you're going to get overtakes happening. It's going to be turn 7. You're going to have maybe a little bit of bravery into the first corner as well. But really, the key areas is turn 7. You could argue turn 14 and 16 as well. But it's going to be an interesting one. It's not the most overtake-friendly track, especially when you get to the meat and potatoes and you get to the likes of Sector 2. But there is still going to be plenty of opportunities for drivers to fight. We've seen it in the past. It's just as much about the bravery of the drivers and how much they're willing to push and commit as they are regarding the track selection.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be a really good one. We are just waiting for what will be the lobby set for the race. But as soon as that's all set, the drivers are ready up and we will be good to go for this race. Now, Singapore, it's one of those tracks where rain doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. And I think that's something that would be quite nice to see. What do we think? Would you like to see rain? Do you think it'd throw a little bit of extra spice in there? Or do you think it'll be more than chaotic enough without it?
I honestly think that we don't need the rain. I think those drivers are going to do more than enough of a job providing that entertainment. And I'm not talking purely just about sort of chaos and getting up in each other's wings. I'm talking about drivers who are going to be pushing the absolute limits. I mean, you saw them in qualifying. You saw how hard they were pushing. And we're going to expect that in the race, the same, if not more, to secure positions. So I don't think we need the rain to boost that scare factor. I think the drivers are certainly going to deliver more than enough on their own. Even if there at times are going to be a little bit of DRS training, a bit of ERS training, we're still going to see the bravest come out on top, and the drivers who are willing to make those tough decisions, to make those riskier plays, I think we will see them be handsomely rewarded.
Yes, indeed. I'm just getting an eye in for what the what the Discord is saying and what these drivers are saying. Tony Hietala has sent a clip into the Discord showing that he had some sort of issue. I can't quite see what the issue was. I'm just trying to catch it. I have no idea. I think he was just having issues with his connection. He's reloading, but these drivers, not much reaction from them in the Discord like we're used to seeing. They normally get pretty heated one way or the other. Couple of drivers unhappy about maybe a little bit of a cheeky block, but nothing major, except Marcel Pabst, whose wheel appears to have disassembled itself, from what I can see.
Well, that's something you don't see every day. But we do wish him all the best of luck that he can reassemble his adult Lego set and get ready to run back on the track once more. It's going to be certainly needed that your equipment stays intact, because we're talking about 31 laps of Singapore here. It's not going to be an easy ride. And so he's got to pray that he held up. I mean, he did do well in quali. He got P10 and did have a really strong, also like the ingredients of a really strong run there. I think it's just parts of it didn't quite go his way. But yeah, everyone's going to have to bring their A game here tonight.
Absolutely, and I think the entire grid around such a long and difficult circuit, being separated by less than a second, the top 10 only about 4/10 in it as well. The margins are so fine, and it is what we like to see week in, week out, is when those margins are so close to one another. I do really feel for Vroom though. Back row of the grid for both of them, 19th for Theo and 20th for Tristan de Herbecourt. Really unlucky, I think, for them. Both of them could have had a lot more out of that. Should have been higher, but they've got the cards they've been dealt, and they've just got to roll with it for the race. And as you say, 31 laps, that's plenty of opportunity for not only chaos and carnage to happen, but plenty of moves to be made. And hopefully for them, a good recovery drive. Obviously, they've only got to move up a few places to get into the points, because we obviously award points all the way down to 15th. So if they can gain a few places, they could be well in the hunt for some low-end points. A bit of carnage could always be in the mix for the high end.
Yeah, I think if I was in the position of Rum right now, for either of the drivers, I would say don't attack lap 1. The reason I say that is because everyone else is going to be fighting tooth and nail for those early positions. Let them burn themselves out. Let them push each other to the limit. And if not burn them out of resources, then let them burn each other out of track. Because we can expect the elbows to be out, and a mistake on that course can have disastrous consequences. So give yourself the space to be able to react. I think of those early stages of the race, keeping your heads down, keeping it consistent, at least for the first few laps here, is going to be the most important part. Because then, once the dust has settled, we will be able to see them really show what they're capable of and start to climb their way up the field with a bit of stability around them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think pretty much spot on. Really got to take it, I think, carefully on that opening lap. Someone who I think may also want to take it quite carefully on the opening lap, Lillian de Herbecourt, I think is also going to want to take it quite carefully, because they are starting in a really good place in this race. The team in 9th in the championship have a driver starting in, I think it's 4th. Yes, 5th. There you go, close enough. 5th. So you've got a driver starting in the really good points. You know, so going to be in a really good place to get a lot of good points out of this one. And I think as soon as they are able to get some really good points, they could really bolster their championship. I think they're feeling a little bit defeated down in 9th at the moment. A good opportunity for them with a driver starting 5th to make some progress.
Well, I think as well, in the same light, look at Thomas Enger Sim Racing. They've got drivers that are within the top 10. Both of their drivers within the top 10, P2 and P8. This is a big chance for them, considering the fight between them and P3 all the way down to P6. A good result here can slingshot them up into that podium spot and potentially keep them there. So a good result is going to be absolutely necessary here for them. But you can say that among all the others. I mean, TF10, they've got P6 and P7 here in qualifying, so they are going to have to work a little bit way up because currently FVR hold the advantage and it could be set to take that championship lead. But let's see. Let's find out because we're about to go trackside anyway, I do believe.
Indeed, yes. But in case you have forgotten where we are going racing, here is your track map for tonight. It is the Singapore circuit, one of the most iconic circuits on the Formula 1 calendar. And, well, a really big change was made to this circuit as, well, we lost a couple of corners, but it makes it faster. It makes it more flowing and it makes the overtakes maybe just that little bit easy. But the heat of this circuit does make those tyres really scream around here. But 3 DRS zones, 19 corners, and plenty of places where you can get your rear wing all crossed up, or your front wing all crossed up. It is going to be a really good battle, but let's take you trackside. We are just moments away from the green light here for this race. In fact, actually, we are here. 3, 4, 5 red lights here, and it is racing here in Singapore for round number 8 of this championship, and it is a good start for your pole man, Tony Huetler. A good start as well for Nick Arrow, who takes himself up into second, but battling here with Conrad Bohm. That opening lap, it's caught me off, it's thrown me off, but it's also thrown Conrad Bohm, who's down to 3rd off, and a few other drivers there towards the bottom of the field, making plenty of movement as we get this opening lap firmly underway.
Yep, great challenge initially from Nick, managing to get the jump on Conrad and make it an FER 1-2 as this first lap gets underway. Lillian Derbior, ABS, currently sat in P7, having a little bit of trouble of their own as Pabst and Koya go side by side, fighting their way, coming out turn 8 and going continually side by side all the way through this sector, neither giving the other an inch. Eventually, it is going to be Koya who has to yield as we head into what was once the Singapore Sling. And first things first is that drivers need to establish those early positions before the DRS opens. Everyone is in a mad dash, a mad flurry, now making their way up through into turn 14. A little bit of closing of the gaps, but everyone has formed out quickly into a neat single file line, but already we can see some drivers pushing the limits. Mark Schluter has already got a single warning. Alex Lamas is already with a warning as well, following a collision with Guti Balance. But Hitala currently leads. Arrow in second, making an FER 1-2 almost untouchable. They're already breaking out about half a second to the others in the field. So TF10, P5 and 6, I'd be sweating a little right now.
Absolutely, I think they will be sweating, but they've got a long race ahead of them to try and make some places and make some moves. But a real mix on the tyre compounds front as well. A lot of the grid starting on that medium compound tyre, but a lot of the grid also on that hard compound tyre. So a real variation, I think, in terms of the strategy that we're going to see pan out in this race. Those who are streaking off a bit into the sunset out in front, the FERs, are on the alternate strategy to some of the other drivers who could really get into the mix by running longer. But Nando Morea is going to need to push a little bit on in this race. He's just out of that 1 second window on Kea in front. So he's got to try and get within that 1 second. He's just about managed it, but the margins, they're very, very fine, but plenty of laps to try and make things happen in this race. But not much movement here on lap 2, but it's always a slow burner around this sort of track. We'll see a lot of action in the latter stages.
Well, I think even in a couple of laps, we'll see a couple of moves be teed up soon. We might see the DRS train be broken. Nando is on the cusp of losing the second gap to Daniel Koya over in Thomas Enke Sim Racing. And we can see that Conrad himself in the other car, in a P3, he's running the hards. So it really is a little bit of an outlier in this field, because where all of the medium runners are pushing, giving it their all, Conrad's managing to hold pace, and if he can hold this pace together, use the medium runners to his advantage, he can have a serious bonus when it comes to his medium stint later on in the session.
Yes, indeed. I think that'll be really interesting to see the different approaches that these drivers are taking. Nando Morea really teetering on the edge of this DRS now at 1.1, so he's got pace and time to find to try and get that DRS, that rear wing opening, which is so crucial around this track. With 3 DRS zones, it's worth a lot of time, so you really do need it if you want to try and keep with this group, with this train. If not, you're going to get left behind very, very easily, but he's doing just about enough to keep that DRS rear wing opening. So nicely handled. Everyone's still within 1 second of each other. In fact, Daniel has found himself falling, even maybe a little bit of drift of Marcel Pabst here. So a couple of drivers seemingly struggling, but that variety in tyre compounds definitely exacerbating the issue just a little bit, as Marcel Pabst is really looking to try and make the move here on Lilian de Herbecourt.
Well, right now, Pabst is sitting on the mediums, Derbecourt's on the hards, so needs to get by pretty soon. If he gets stuck behind a hard runner, this is going to seriously damage his pace, and he won't be able to leverage those yellow walls to their fullest potential. So this is big for him. Hopefully he can get that jump on the DRS as we just come out of turn 5. The wing is going to open, but so is it going to for everyone else. And in fact, Derbecourt pumping a little bit of resource into staying ahead. I think they're going to be running the battery a fair bit hotter than Pabst is right now. So maybe, although counterintuitively, considering the medium tyres, Derbecourt is playing a bit of the long game here. Burn the battery now, recover it throughout the rest of the laps, and then Pabst is forced to push harder and lose the prime time that he has with the medium.
I was going to say, yeah, there's not going to be much time that these tyres are going to be in a really good operating window. They will lose pace quite quickly. We're already seeing that with Conrad Bohm, who's really close now to the back of Nick Arrow. We're only 4 laps into this race. Is it a sign that maybe the medium compound tyre is struggling a little bit for tyre temperatures as well? That's always something you've got to consider around a track that does work the tyres quite hard. Those hards are just going to be that little bit more cool and give them that little bit longevity and mean that they wear maybe that little bit slower versus those who've got them just that little bit hotter even still. But I suppose every difference could be really huge for all of these drivers here, as lap 5, still not many moves at the front of the field, but everything getting a lot closer now.
Well, you say that, but we're starting to see a tale of 2 groups forming. Moreira is firmly out of the DRS window, meaning that Tamas Kokeni is going to be the driver now, breathing down their neck and leveraging that immediately as they make an overtake, heading out into turn 7. But Daniel Koya is also a driver that's been teetering on that danger zone. They've been fluctuating between 7 and 9 tenths of a second between themselves and Marcel Pabst, who is really having to push to keep up with Derbecourt. So gonna have to keep an eye on those drivers. Moreira maybe looking to get a bit of a resurgence on Tamas Kokeni, but at the same time, with the 2 second gap, Is it worth pushing now, or would they be better off waiting to save all of their big moves for the pit windows?
Yeah, the really difficult thing they've got to consider at this point is the fact that there are some hard runners in this train with the mediums that is going to be detriment to their own race. If they can't catch up to their follow hard tyre runners, it's of detriment to their own race. But is it worth the possible damage to the tyres that they could do by trying to gain that 2 and nearly a half second window, or is it not worth it? That's the real balance that they've got to really weigh up here in the next couple of laps in terms of how they want their race to pan up. Do they want a shot of victory, or do they want a shot at some good points? It's kind of the real gamble they've got to take, because, you know, they're only going to get one of those options, and if they try and fight for the win and it doesn't pan out, they give themselves too much tyre wear, it could all come crumbling back down. But Nando Morea takes the place back versus Tomas Cockney there in towards turn number 7. Very nicely done. So I have a sneaky suspicion they've made their mind up, and they're just going to be squabbling between each other over 10th place.
Well, the question is something that I'm also going to be asking to TF10. They got 2 of their drivers, 5th and 6th, but they're not really pushing the boat out that hard to try and chase the likes of Raminges and Conrad. So do they have a particular strategy in mind at this point of the race? Because if I was them, I'd see FVR in 1 and 2, and I'd at least try to clear the drivers standing between us and our main rival in the championship.
Yeah, I think it's a play it calm and cautiously in the opening stages of the race for TF10. We've seen it time and time again where they don't necessarily give it full beans so early on. Is that a pit for Nick Arrow? No, that's Tony Hitala.
Oh, wait, he dips back out. So Hitala jumps into the pit lane, Arrow goes in, and then comes back. What just happened?
FVR?
With the FVR. That was a disaster class of a pit entry, because Arrow rejoins the track surface, hopping over the curbs.
Oh,
what
dear.
was that?
Oh dear, that's probably something that'll go to the stewards as well, because he's crossed the white line on the pit entry. So he's also made a pretty sizable error there, a dangerous one at that as well, as he came off into the path of other drivers. But what has conspired there? Nick Arrow, Tony Hitala, both wanting to come onto the pit lane on lap 6. Clearly, the strategists over at FVR not talking to each other. And we say about how TF10 were biding their time. Sometimes just got to bide your time for a mistake, because that is a huge cataclysmic mistake that's been made for one of the FVRs. The other one, you know, fine to run their race as they please, maybe still in contention for the win. But the other one is going to have a difficult time between now and that checkered flag, because they've lost easily 4 or 5 seconds in that.
Yeah, I think there really has been a breakdown of communication there. They would have double stacked, and it still would have been a time loss, but I think that Arrow did make the worst possible response given the situation. You can see is going to be heading into the pits, but even if they double stacked, that would have resulted in maybe a couple of seconds, but now you're looking at a couple of seconds, plus the deficit from getting back up to speed on the track, plus potential stewards investigation. So if I was FER right now, I'd be looking at how the teammates interact with each other. And I'd be a little bit worried for the race effort, because they have all but handed a massive advantage to their main championship rival right now.
Absolutely, and we've also got to talk about the huge talk of the strategy, because going from the mediums to the hards that early, is it really that the medium tyres wear that quickly? Surely we would have expected to see them on those mediums for a few more laps to come in this race, but clearly the strategists at FVR know something we don't, because they seem to think that then was the optimal time to pit. If I'm 100% honest with you, I am not all too convinced that is the right call at all, but I suppose we'll have to wait and see. But possibly a huge implication there, not just on the time they pit, but also the impact it could have later on down the race and those possible stewards investigations. I think really interesting thing from FVR, but we'll just have to wait to see whether they are cooking an absolute masterclass, or if it could be the very polar opposite and a disaster class.
I'm doing a little bit of napkin math, and based on previous experience, you're looking at the mediums running anywhere from 20 to 30% right now. I think we're going to see a bit more wear on the rears overall compared to the fronts, but even so, they will be looking to get onto their quote end game tire as soon as possible. We're seeing a couple more cars now head in, so that's going to be one of the TF10 cars as well as the NLR car of Pau Viegas. And we also see a penalty for Theo, so Vroom's race has, unfortunately, despite having some gains compared to their starting positions, it has taken a bit of a blow, and this will see them be put down the order once again.
Yeah, I think disappointing for Vroom once again. A penalty, not what they would have wanted in this race, but Theo, I think, was running plumb last in the race, if I do remember correctly. But look at the advantage, actually, that Tony Hietala has gained by doing that undercut. For sure, he has gained a heap of time versus those around him. I mean, he wasn't the one caught up in that error, but 5.5 seconds between Tony Hietala and Chris Bozensky there is a huge amount of time, which is probably why we're seeing everybody else come into the pit lanes to change as a reaction to the undercut that's being done by FVR. If I was in these driver situations, if the tyres felt good, maybe I would run an extra lap or two, build myself a bit of tyre offset, see if I could maybe get something out more later on in this race, which is maybe what some drivers are trying, like Noel, Tristan de Herbecourt and Alex Lamasse. But Tony Hietala pulling that undercut, not having the issue that affected his teammate, that miscommunication, quite comfortably out in front at the minute.
Well, regardless of how that pit strategy played out, the drivers have got to make the best of it at this point. So Arrow taking their stop, of course, a lap later, and a little bit further down the order, they are still going to have a shot at some good points here. Fundamentally, they're one of the first to pit. They will have an advantage compared to some of those who try to overcut, because the undercut is such a powerful strategy. But now we look at the rest of the field, and we're starting to see it sort of split into two different battles. One thing I am curious of, though, is when it comes to deciding when the right time to pit is, because the drivers, they of course have an idea of how their tyres are running, but they won't be able to run comparatively with lap times and keep an eye on all of the data, and that's why so much work goes into engineering. Now, a good tyre in terms of feel doesn't always mean a good tyre in terms of fast, because a good feeling can just mean that you're not pushing to its limits. You're not really running it for all the grip that it has. We do see a couple more cars heading into the pits, but that's always been a curiosity of mine.
Alex Lamasse, a 10-second time penalty there for speeding into the pit lane. So, yeah, coming into the pit lane just that little bit too hot, and that is not what AMR would have wanted, but I suppose Aaron Dominguez is probably the man that is flying the flag for AMR tonight as Guti Balin moves himself ahead of Triscan up into 6th place on the road as Trisk does run just that little bit wide. Teammate Luke Mills chooses not to fight that one. No infighting EVE. Quite ironically, driving the Alpine that have had a lot of infighting over the years in the real world. Fortunately, no infighting tonight for them. But out in front at the moment, Conrad Bohm, who's on the hard compound tyres, doing the opposite strategy, going onto the medium tyres at some point later on in this race. I'd expect probably about 10 laps or so until we see some of those hard compounds going and being changed for a set of the mediums. But you never know in this sort of races. Tristan has gone on to a set of the mediums, interestingly enough. So a bit of a different strategy there for one of the rooms towards the back of the grid, but plenty of time for these hard compound tyres to warm up for those towards the back and to wear out for those towards the front, as we've got a bit of an awkward crossover period until it is all battling and carnage once more with all 20 drivers very close together, just due to the fact that some haven't pitted yet.
Yeah, well, at this point, we have two distinct groups, and it is pretty much half and half. We see Koya and Derbicor go for a bit of a trade, Morera and Kokani doing much of the same. Turn 7 proving to be the place where most of the overtakes are going to happen, and where most of the drivers are going to be pushing each other in terms of pace. Now, remember, when we come back to it all, Morera is still going to be out of the DRS, and that's why they've been fighting with Kokani back and forth. But we will, of course, have the drivers converge once again when everyone has taken their stops. So everyone who's currently on the hards, I think we're going to see them running for a fair amount longer in this race. It won't be till at least, I'd say, around the lap 20 mark, where we'll see some of the hard runners go onto the mediums, because I think the hards tend to be the tyre of choice here. The thermals are more than acceptable. They have their cars dialed to where they keep it in that good optimal window, and the track only being about 27-28 degrees because of the evening, it is still going to make it manageable compared to some of the other tracks we've had in the past. But they will have to keep an eye on how they wear those rear tires in particular. You do see more rear wear than you do on the fronts, so the car will stay snappy, but can they put all of the power down? Careful on that throttle.
Indeed, very much so. Talk of rain in the chat. There is no rain forecast from what I can see, and if there is rain forecast, it is after the checkered flag at the moment. Talk of some of the strategic decisions being made across the grid as a result of some wet weather towards the end, but I see nothing on my radar. I'm not sure whether you see any on yours, but for the time being, it does not seem like any weather is approaching our direction anytime soon that's going to bear impact on this race. But it has been a bit of a downpour for Nick Arrow, who is down in 16th for the moment, and struggling to get past Marcel Pabst at the moment as well, who is doing a good job to defend. And, well, he's behind both TF10s and AMR and, of course, his teammates. So he's got a long way to go in this race.
Oh, I am seeing a little bit of probability of rain, but that is not for at least, according to my data, at least 30 minutes. And even then, probability is not a guarantee. So if we are to see any rain, or at least any weather related to that, maybe it becoming overcast, then we will, of course, keep monitoring, and we will provide those updates in due course. But I don't think it's going to be enough of the race distance to make a meaningful impact. Maybe, at most, we will see a couple of laps towards the end. That's my prediction at the very least. But it can also, and kind of puts into a different light, affect those who are currently running on the hards. Do they chance it and run even longer on the white walls in the hope of cutting into the rain and getting an extra stop for free? Or do they stick to their guns, go for their original strategy, run the risk of having to take an additional stop to swap to maybe a set of inters if it gets bad enough?
Yeah, I think that's really some of the gamble that will be going on within the strategist department of each of these teams. Is what is that Sky saying? They haven't got a pit wall to stick their hand out of to see what the weather's saying, but I'm sure they're using all of the telemetry that they've got handy to see every little detail about how this race is going to pan out and what they can deliver and cook for this race. And very much, as you say, a difference in terms of some drivers, you know, playing it calm and conservative, going for that original strategy. Others maybe taking a bit more of a gamble on what may or may not fall from the skies in this race. Comrade Bohm, that's a disappointing thing to see. The man who's leading the race at the moment was in the hunt for the race win as well. A 3-second time penalty for too many warnings. That's going to really take him out of contention of a solid result.
Yeah, and that really has been a blow to what, at this point, was looking like an amazing weekend for Thomas Enger Sim Racing. Because you've got both of them 1-2. They're currently sat P1 and P2. Okay, now, of course, this is provisional given they haven't yet taken their stops, but it's still an amazing result. And Conrad, with his early fight, he shows he can hang it with the best of them. So, disappointing to see. At this rate means that they will be demoted to around P4, or potentially lower once the pit stops have happened. But another one is that ABS are currently holding that second row and doing so in a strong fashion, with Kokini having a sizable lead and nearly kicking Barrera out of the DRS window.
Indeed, yeah, really good from Lilian de Herbecourt. He's really got himself into the fold at the forefront of this field. He's done such a great job so far in this race. And Tomas Cockney as well, a driver who we are used to seeing in the points and fighting tooth and nail for every single position. Not doing a bad job either, and as you say, trying to knock Nando Morea out of that 1 second window. And he is coming very close to doing so. One little mistake from Nando Morea, and that will absolutely knock him out of that 1 second window. But just about managing to use DRS to keep within it. But there's a lot of drivers behind of Guti Balin, Trisk, Luke Mills, and Passy, who are all fighting very hammer and song at the moment over P6 to P9. And well, the drivers behind them are those who are in that train for the race win. So they've got to be careful. They don't want to fight too hard.
Yeah, it's just keeping their wits about them and not doing anything that could be considered too risky. Now, for the Adversio drivers, they don't want to fight. They are on the same team fundamentally. They're going to be careful about how they manage their race. Of course, if one is faster than the other, then this can be difficult if they don't communicate, if they don't manage their strategy and their pace effectively. But stepping on too many toes and getting in each other's way, especially when we see a bit of a wobble from the likes of Guti Balin. They had a bit of a wobbly exit coming out of that one. And heading into turn 14, you can see them draw closer. A little bit of a slide for Luke Mills, barely keeping it together. Passy's going to be taking advantage, going side by side, heading out into turn 16. Going to have the inside run, bumping a bit of tyres. Bit of rubber being traded there. And it is going to be Passy who actually backs out of that one and doesn't want to fight it along the outside of turn 17. So, goes to show, mistakes do have consequences, but the Adversio drivers have got a good position here. They don't want to waste it.
No, absolutely they don't, and well, they've got an opportunity, especially if that rain does come, to really you take advantage of it and get, as you say, that free pit stop that could mean they take a really solid result, which they would really like to have in this race at the moment as well. A lot of their rivals towards the bottom, so it's a big jump if they are able to take it here. But Tomas Sim Racing, really, they do have a really solid fist over this race, and they really can control it with Daniel as well, being able to maybe back off if need be to try and open up that window between him and his teammate, to try and negate some of that disadvantage from that 3 second penalty. Be careful, of course, don't want to get told off by the stewards, but you know, if your pace suddenly becomes a little bit slower, oh, I just had a dodgy couple of laps, right? Very easy to shrug it off, but ABS, I think, aren't really going to let that slide at all, because Lilian is really hot on the heels. But we're over that halfway distance in this race. A lot of fighting and squabbling still to go in this one. And, well, that rain seems to be looming a little bit on my telemetry, a little bit more than it was 5-10 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, currently sat, at least according to the internal, it's now set to be within the next 10 minutes if rain is going to come down. Probabilities currently sat at 22%, but in 10 minutes that could raise up to as high as 50, and it has climbed over the course of the session, so we do have,
dear.
That's Nick
Arrow
is out on the final corner, just takes a bit too much, goes a bit too aggressive. Oh, Noel is going to be jumping across the pit line, but Nick is out of the session. Safety car has been deployed.
Oh, it's raining! It started raining!
And the rain is coming down as well. You can see it start to beat up. It's all kicked off at once.
Oh, wow, that's really dramatic. None of our telemetry picked up the rain hitting on lap 18, but now this is a real gamble. Do they go for inters? It's only just started raining, but if it's going to pick up, is it worth changing now, or could they be hung out to dry on a dry track that isn't quite wet enough? This is now really, really dangerous for all of these drivers, because whichever way you go could pan out absolutely disastrously. But the strategy that those at the front really wanted. The rain coming down, providing a little bit of chaos, a little bit of carnage, and changing onto the Inters has worked out brilliantly because it's been in time with a safety car. You do not get better timing than that. This is absolutely what they want. And now you'll see everybody come into the pit lane, but what is the choice of tyres from Comrade Bohm, who'll be the first driver in, the first driver to make that gamble.
Yeah, he's going to be the first to make that judgment call, and of course, the drivers have a difficult decision to make. Looks like the majority is favouring Slick, so despite the rain now starting to come down, it's not being deemed... It's not being deemed enough. Moreira is going to head onto the Inters. They're going to be the first to take that gamble, along with Triske and Guti Balin. But a lot of the leaders have opted for Slicks still after this. Maybe they are hoping that the rain is not serious enough to warrant a set of Inter tyres. But so many of the grid now jumping onto them. I don't know whether that was the right call. Hitala is on the medium. Conrad is on the medium, Lillian, Daniel, Tamash, and you have many others further down the order who went on to Slicks themselves to jump the field. But, yeah, I don't know where this is going to go.
Yeah, so to explain why some of these drivers have opted for the intermediate tyres, because let's face it, we can see the track. It is not quite intermediate conditions. We're a long way from intermediate conditions at the moment. I really wish I could get a trackside shot so I could actually show you. You can see it is not wet on the track at the moment, but the reason these drivers are taking this gamble so early on is because it will probably get to intermediate conditions, and if it gets to intermediate conditions whilst we're under the safety car, bear in mind, we're going to be under these conditions for another 5 minutes or so, especially with how slow the laps are around a circuit like Singapore. It could be that come the end of the safety car window, the track is now wet, and it wasn't when that safety car came out. So that is why so many drivers are gambling on Inters, despite it not being into conditions at the moment. But I'm not sure about you, Ben, but I'm seeing how heavy this rain is falling. I dare say that if we're not into conditions by the end of the safety car, it won't be long afterwards.
Maybe the drivers are counting on the rain stopping as quickly as it starts, and that's why the Slicks are still being favoured by some. But one thing's for sure, the rain is coming down. We're going to have at least one more lap of safety car running, as we do still have the McLarens, aka Vroom, making their way around the course along with one of the Hasses. I believe that's Alex Lamas. Now, will it settle on the track enough before it disappears? If it disappears, we'll find out. But I think the Inters are going to be the tyre to be on once we're out of the safety car spot. The rain is going to pool a little bit on the track, and the Inters are going to overheat a little bit at first. But I think once things get going, we will see a bit of a sheen and a bit of the Inters coming into their own.
Indeed, I think there's going to be a lot of shimmy and shuffling around here. Marcel Pabst leading us under these safety car conditions at the moment. Penny for the thoughts of the man who leads at the moment, because he knows if it does go to Inters, he is going to fall like a stone, especially on these tyres. They're worn. It's going to be really difficult. Those who've gambled on the Slicks now, under that pit stop, they've got a chance because they're going to have some heat in the tyres. But Marcel Pabst, he's worn them for 10 laps. They're also hards. They're not going to give him anywhere near as much grip. So if it does get very slippery, those on the mediums are going to be just that little bit better off than Marcel Pabst, who's out in front. He's got a lot of work to do, but I don't think he's going to be leading this race for very long, especially with those on the mediums behind. They're going to have more tyre temperature and more grip, especially if we have one lap of clean running before it becomes too dangerous on the Slicks and goes towards those Inters. But I must admit, it's not looking very wet at the moment, so the Slicks, they could hold their own for a lap or two.
Yeah, I think if there is anyone who has lost out on this one, it is Pabst. They have gone for track position in favour of tyres. And I really don't think it's going to work out in their favour here. We are going to have the safety car go around one more time because Theo is far enough away from the safety car queue to where it deems another lap around, which is advantageous for the Inter's runners. However, Paps is going to be, I think, in quite the spot of bother, considering, as you said, they are on the hards, they are old. So on a slick perspective, they are at a disadvantage compared to the likes of Derbicore, Bomb, and Koya. On a rain side of things, they're going to be at a massive disadvantage because not only are they on slicks, which means they can't displace the water, but they're going to be on old hards, which means that the thermals are going to be working against them all the time. The mediums, for what it's worth, they still can keep a good operating window even when there's a bit of rain coming down because they're softer, they're more pliant, they're easier to gain temperature.
Oh
But
dear.
Paps doesn't have that luxury.
Aaron Raminguez crossing the pit lane exit, the white line on the pit exit, 10-second time penalty. I expect that may be removed. I'm not fully sure on the specific rules. I am very interested though. There's a lot of drivers and some people who aren't particularly happy to see how slow Theo was going. They're not particularly happy because they think he may have been going intentionally slow to try and get it so that the Inters with a better tyre, which does make plausible sense, but hey, let's not spew the conspiracy theories too early. We've got a long way to go between now and the checkered flag, and interestingly, both AMRs have come into the pit lane to go back onto dries, which I think
That
is
is a
really
choice.
interesting. So, I don't think anyone knows what to do at this stage, but we are going to get back under green flag running on this lap. 97 people in this live stream, by the way. It is great to see so many people joining us to see this safety car restart. We have had a really interesting incident that's conspired here, and it does mean that we have a restart with wet and dry tyres on the road. Marcel Paps, though, will lead us away as he goes very gingerly around the final bend. What can he manage here? What can he do? Round the final bend. Oh, it's sliding around the final corner. Oh, it's all crossed up. It is definitely very slippery. Lillian de Herbecourt, though, immediately down the inside into turn one.
And there you can see it, right there, immediately on the back foot. Paps has already dropped a position just on the start of the green flag period now. Lap 22 of 31. Currently, we have Paps falling like a stone. Conrad being the next one to go alongside. And the rain continues to fall. So some of the Inters drivers are going to be pushing, seeing what they can make compared to the slicks. So far, it still looks like anyone's game. It still looks like anyone has an advantage, with some of the Inters runners dropping a bit of pace at this point. I think it's still up for debate, though. It's a 2x2 massive clumper cars all the way through. It's Koya,
wow.
it's Paps, it's Trisk, it's Kokini, Balin, Morera, all in this massive gaggle of cars.
Oh my
Everyone
god,
is
it's
fighting for
so
a space.
carnage! Oh, and Guti and Tomas Cockney side by side. Very much a lot of carnage and chaos happening here. I have no idea what the faster tyre is here, because everyone is squabbling so much that you can't tell, you can't read the compounds at all. Marcel Paps, though, really struggling. He'll fall to 5th now. 1st to 5th in a lap. He's having a difficult time of it as now. Look at Tomas Cockney. He tries it down the inside. Can't make it down the inside. He'll get overtaken by Guti Balin. But Trisk up to 4 for EVE. This could be another great result for them as he'll look to maybe try go down the inside on Daniel. Oh, it's around the outside. What a move from Trisk. EVE, one of the teams at the back of the grid, could be about to take a sensational result here. EVE could be about to send it to the stratosphere. Around Singapore, Lillian de Herbecourt and Conrad Bohm, watch your backs, because EVE could be a-coming and could be about to spoil your party. But this is absolutely brilliant racing.
I look around the rest of the field as well. Kokeni dropping hard already into P10, P11 and counting. DRS is enabled, curiously enough, so despite the rain coming down... Oh, there you go. Never mind. Forget I said anything. The DRS has been officially disabled. It looks like Hitala made the choice to go back into the pits and get themselves on a set of inters, but got a penalty for crossing the white line. So again, steward's discretion. Let's see how that one pans out. Balin managing to get a jump on Koya, heading out into turns 11 and 12 here. Watching Conrad struggle on those slicks as the track is well and truly in that space now where it's going to be much more optimal. And you can see Conrad having a bit of a wobble coming out of turn 13, and it will be their turn to drop down in the same way that we saw with Paps not too long ago.
Indeed, yeah, really a lot of squabbling going on now. QT Balin and Mark Schluter side by side battling. RB versus Red Bull. They aren't fighting for the same team, though. They aren't fighting for anything. They are fighting for two very different battles. One for the championship, one for that third place in the championship. And this is throwing everything that we know and understand into pure question and anarchy here, because you really cannot predict or call anything in this race. But look at Trisk. He is so close to the back of Lilian de Herbecourt, the man who gambled on the slick tyres. He tried it. His fellow compatriot at Vroom with the same surname didn't take that same gamble, went for the inters, and the inters was the right call. Trisk is thinking about the move. Surely he makes the move down the inside into turn number 7. EVE, the team that couldn't do anything, that everybody discredited and discounted from a chance at a good result, are now 1 and 3 in this race and make it 1 and 2 as Luke Mills takes that second place away from Lilian de Herbecourt. This is a team trying to make an absolute statement in a race that has proved to be so chaotic.
Yeah, this is completely flipped on its head, and this is completely changing the game. This could be the slingshot up the leaderboard that EVE needs right now, as Derbecourt is struggling to get those slicks to work in their favour. There's Schluter going, there's Balin going, there is Moreira also peeking the nose in, but they are going to be under a little bit of pressure of their own, as Bidzinski is in the second TF10 car, and they're going to be putting some pressure down, making it 2, almost 3 wide for a second. Moreira drops back, and Bidzinski into P5 now, and TF10 3rd and 5th. Remember, leading the championship, keep in mind, but there has been a massive upset in the order. That EVE 1-2, if they can hold on to it, this is generational performance we're talking about, and this is going to be the massive boost in confidence that team needs right now.
Indeed, 1 and 2 would be such a good result. Theo all over the shop here as Lilian de Herbecourt is struggling so much here. He will fall now to 12th in this race. The gamble on those slick compound tyres, it was just not to be. FVR could come home with 0 points. That is an absolute disappointment for them, but what could be the elation for everybody else who could be in what is one of the most chaotic races, taking results that were absolute dreams at the start of the season. It does not get more chaotic, more carnage inducing, and any better than this. When the heavens open, everything gets flipped on its head, and over 100 people are watching this carnage ensue, and I am absolutely here for it.
Well, the question I have in my mind is what happened with AMR? They went back onto the slicks, and I definitely think that was the wrong call. I mean, if you look at Alex Lamas and Tamas Kokeni, they might as well be on an episode of Initial D with how much they're going sideways right now and barely holding the car in a straight line. It's really looking like a struggle for them. But their loss is others' gain right now, and someone who is certainly gaining is TF10. Although saying that, looks like we have had one of the kicks albers off track. That is Lilian Derbecourt, again in their saga of struggling to hold the car together. They found their own pocket at the track, but they went into the wall coming out of turn 14. They've lost an end play, and now they've lost any chance of catching up to the rest of the field as they're barely keeping on this course. Noel, getting a 3-second time penalty, but let's keep an eye to the front, as I think Brzezinski is going to be challenging to make it a second row lockout for TF10.
Absolutely, but I think Mark Schluter is trying to see what he can do in this race to try and challenge the Avizios out in front, but nicely done from Brzezinski to take 4th place from Guti Balin there. Nicely done, clinical, and made to absolute perfection, as Passy is really having to battle here as well with Pal Vegas. So he is having battles of his own. TTM really would be looking to try and take a good result out of this one if they can as well, because that will bolster their championship chances and their challenge for that battle for 3rd, which they really do want to try and get involved in and get a grasp on if they can. And this is the sort of race and result that will do it for them, as Pal struggles there on the exit as Noel tries to go side by side.
Well, a couple of drivers still looking to make things happen in the final 5 laps of driving. Morera, for example, half a second between themselves and Balin, trying to close that gap as best they can and get some good points in the pocket for TTM. As things currently stand with ET8's performance, 10th and 12th, they will jump them in the standings. But they can't rest on that just yet, because you never know what could happen. If this race is anything that it can teach us, it's that as soon as you think things are stable and they've reached a point of balance, no they haven't, here comes a spanner in the works.
Absolutely. Spanners in the works galore, and it has proven so detrimental for some. Tony Hietala has managed to get his way into some points as he's now in 13th, but it's pittance for a team like FVR that expects so much more and so much greater from their drivers. But Guti Balin and Nando Morea side by side, all shoved and shown the door. Guti Balin, but he'll hold it down the inside there into turn number 8. Still side by side on the exit. Beautifully done, trying to keep that battle alive on such a slippy circuit, such a slippy road. And Guti Balin manages to do it nearly 3 wide there. In towards as we go into turn 10, now turn 11 and 12, still trying to go side by side. Guti Balin is really all over the shop. He's trying to find that opportunity to make this move for 5th place, and I cannot blame him. Nando Morea is struggling a lot in these conditions. He's holding up a lot of drivers. You want to get past this slow TTM as soon as you can, but look at Tristan de Herbecourt, who's now getting involved in this and wants to try and give himself a chance at this P5.
Tristan flying the flag right now and in a P6 position. That is a healthy dose of points with room that they certainly do not want to pass up. That could be the difference between them walking away from a chance at the top 5 in this championship and them leapfrogging the likes of AMR, especially considering the performance they've had tonight and currently being sat with 0 points on the table. Theo is going to be hit with 3 seconds, bringing their total up to 9 seconds of penalties. It's still not enough to put them down to P12, but it is certainly going to be enough to really put a damper on their current racing performance, which leaves a couple of different options on the table. And with a few laps to go, this is where drivers have to make an important judgment call. Do they push for those positions, or do they stay a bit more defensive, conserve their resources, and firm the spot they're currently in? Everyone is now going to have to make that judgment call.
Yes, consolidating everything that these drivers are doing in this race. It's such a difficult gamble, such a difficult battle. But look at the battle for this podium. Mark Schluter, I've just noticed, is within tenths of these EVEs who are holding on to this 1-2 for their lives. And I can absolutely see what it means to them. There's damage to a wing that I saw come off there, but I can't quite see who it's come off of. I think it might have come off Luke Mills' front wing, which wouldn't be great news for them. But I see all front wings intact, so maybe a visual thing more so than an actual problem for these drivers. But Luke Mills under a lot of pressure right now from Mark Schluter. He's already got a 3-second time penalty to contend with. I believe it's a 3-second time penalty. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this really is hanging on to everything that they can in this race.
Yeah, it's going to be a final push. It is 3 seconds for Luke Mills, which means that regardless of how this fight goes down, he's going to be demoted to P4 at the very least. And if Moreira catches up, it could put him potentially down into P5. But that's not going to stop him from putting on his defensive work and getting himself ahead of Schluter. Now, wings aren't opening at this stage of the race, but that's not going to stop the drivers from deploying everything they have. The battery is key here. Managing those resources, that's what's going to get you the positions. We see Mark Schluter just has a little bit more burn in the tank, and he's going to use it to great effect, getting past Luke Mills. And now, this is the tough part, because if Brzezinski can also get by, it will mean TF10 walk away with second and third, and Luke will get pushed down to P5 because Moreira is officially within that 3-second window.
Indeed, yeah. Gotta hope that Moreira doesn't really have a good couple of laps if Luke Mills wants to try and take fourth. But I think either way, EVE are going to be so satisfied in this. And I think Luke Mills maybe made a bit of a strategic ploy. He knew his race wasn't going to be as good as his teammates because of that penalty. Was he deliberately trying to hold up Mark Schluter to give his teammate Trisk the best chance that he can to win this race? And I think this could be such an amazing story and such a thing that EVE will hold dear if they can manage. They've got just 2 more laps to go in this race as we head on to the penultimate lap of action now. Trisk, the gap, 1.1 seconds, the difference between those 2 drivers. It is still all to play for here, and I am so looking forward to seeing what comes of this. It is really absolutely time to push to the sky and see what comes of this, because it is really heating up ever more, even though the track is getting colder and colder as the rain falls harder.
Yeah, so still very high probability of rain and set to intensify if anything. So there is going to be no change in the weather. And I think the strategy is clear. Now that we've seen how EVE cars are handling this and how Mark Schluter is really giving it all that he has now, I think the directive was clear. I think Luke knew that with the penalty, it wasn't going to be that dream 1-2 result by any stretch, especially with TF10 lurking on the horizon. So Luke, doing what he can, holding off the likes of Schluter for as long as possible. Brzezinski doing much of the same. And the objective is clear. Triske, drive. Drive like your career depends on it, because a win for EVE here is going to be a monumental result for them. And like we were saying earlier, this could be the momentum, the slingshot they need to really print their mark on this championship.
Yes, and you can see the gap between the 2 on your screen in big and bold. That battle for P1, Trisk versus Mark Schluter. The gap ever-changing between the 2 drivers, but now onto the final lap of action here around Singapore. Luke Mills has got to try and drive as hard as he can to try and secure 4th, but it may be falling to 5th or lower for him. But his teammate has got a real mission on his hand. He's got a real job on his hands to try and take what would be EVE's first win in competitive speed series, and what a win it would be in changeable conditions in a race that wasn't meant to be at the beginning. It could be a race ending to remember for the future and the history of this team. 2.5 tenths separating these 2 drivers, and what a time to be watching. So many people have watched and tuned in to what has been one of the most iconic displays of racing in action. Look at Mark Schluter. He's going left, he's going right, he's trying absolutely everything he can to get ahead and get in front of the EVE, a team that have tried so hard and so desperately to get results week in, week out. Many a times they've fallen outside of the points, and as they head through and down what would be a DRS straight, that rear wing won't open, and Trisk can maybe breathe a little sigh of relief as there is one final opportunity to make that move, make that lunge. Trisk
it's not going to happen.
Absolutely had to drive it for the first time in competitive speed series history. EVE will cross the line and be first in a race. Trisk has done it. EVE have won a race. Mark Schluter second, Chris Brzezinski Zelensky in third, Nando Morea, Tristan de Herbecourt, followed by Luke Mills, who falls to sixth with that penalty. But what a race for EVE! Finally, a race winner!
And there you go. Luke is going to get down into P6 at the end, but what a result for Eversio Racing. And TF10 as well. They have done immaculately, and they have certainly capitalized on the advantages that were handed to them throughout the race. Second and third, that is going to firm them in the lead of the championship, with fellow rival of FVR only scoring a couple of points, if that, with Hitala down in 14th and Arrow being our retirement of the race. Moreira in 4th place, healthy points dosage for TTM and getting a sizable jump on the likes of ET8. That could be what pushes them up as well, but of course we'll have to wait and see. Passy getting 7th as well is going to help with that for sure. But the story of the night, without a doubt, Eversio, P6 and P1. What a result. You take a scenario like this, you take a situation like they have seen, and they absolutely went to town, made it work, and really played the field to perfection, near perfection here. And this was certainly a brilliant race to watch.
Absolutely, such a great race. I really hope we get to hear from Trisk in the post-race interviews, because what a race to remember for the Eversio man, and what a really amazing one. This has been, I can confirm, it does not take much to confirm, this has been our biggest ever stream. We peaked at over 104 concurrent viewers at one point in this race. This has been our biggest ever stream, and 100 people watched EVE take the checkered flag in P1. What a race, and what a way to take your first win in changeable conditions, but taking to the top step of the podium for the very first time. Eversio. What a race to remember.
And seriously impressed. I'm sure the team back home are going to be absolutely ecstatic, as well as some others. So we're going to see, it's a night of winners and losers, as always, but Eversio being the biggest winners out tonight. TF10 also being a big winner with their 2nd and 3rd place. TTM are going to take out a healthy dosage of points too. Likely going to be a leapfrogging ET8 in the championship here, with Vroom getting a good dose of points as well for the result of Tristan Derbicourt in P5 and Theo in P11. But rounding things off, you've got the 2 NLR drivers of Gucci Balin and Pau Villegas in 8th and 9th. You have the TES, the Thomas Eng Sim Racing drivers in 12th and 15th. You have the 2nd ET8 car, along with Noel in 10th and 13th. And then it's a night to forget for some, particularly FVR. Such a strong start to the session. 1st and 3rd, then turning into a P14 and a P20. I think the team back home have got a little bit of work to do in the communication department, because that was certainly a bit of a blunder on their side of things.
Indeed. Well, a difficult pill to swallow for some, but very much the sweet and the victorious pill for others. I am really hoping we are going to get our top 3 in for an interview here. I desperately hope someone has pinged them. Luke is going to be heading in for an interview with EVE as well. But I am really hoping we can hear from all of our top 3 as well. But whilst we wait to see if any of our podium drivers head in, let's try and hear from Luke Mills, who may have finished 6th, but played a huge part in EVE's win today. Well, Luke Mills.
Driving thumbs up.
Oh, I have caught you mid-conversation. I apologise. It is us in the commentary box who have just witnessed the very first EVE win, and a very iconic EVE win. There is no doubt that you played a bit of a part in that by holding up those tricky TF10s. How does it feel?
Well, I mean, that's
I think, the team's best PC event result, which is, ridiculous. Yeah, I just went full. I wanted to defend fairly, so I was just trying to focus on just costing them a bit of time to let Triske build a gap, and I was also managing, sort of looking at the gap behind to where I would have dropped to with a penalty. So I didn't want to, like, go too aggressive with the defender. But I think I kept it fair. Maybe a little slow through some corners, but it's just sort of what you have to do. And yeah, amazing result. I'm very proud of Triske for winning that. Fair play to him. He did very well to just keep his cool at the end. And honestly, P6, I mean, like, I shouldn't be P6. Like, I don't deserve to be this high because I drove a terrible race. But you know what? Things happen, so I'm here.
Absolutely. I think it's a race to forget for many, but a race to remember for others. Let's speak to your teammate. Go and enjoy the P6, or stick it in if you want to hear words from your lovely, lovely teammate who won the race. I've caught the other EVE mid-conversation as well. It's just happening. Sappy, kick off the questions for the race winner.
Oh, I mean, what is there to say? Absolutely brilliant race. I mean, from both of you in EVE. But Tristan, how does it feel to be a race winner tonight?
Oh, it's actually crazy, man. I have never expected to even win. So yeah, it's crazy, man. All thanks to the thread.
Yeah, well, talk us through. Talk us through, I guess, your mindset and sort of your expectations heading into the night. And because I'm sure there was certainly a turning point where you realised that you could actually win this. So talk us through your weekend, your race weekend for us here, just so that everyone can, watching at home, understand what it was like to be in that kind of situation.
Well, on hard I had pretty decent pace, not really good, but then the safety car came out and my engineer told me to pit for Inters. And then on Inters I overtook the, was it V Cup? Yeah, and then I overtook everyone who was on mediums. So yeah, I'm also pretty happy for Luke. If he didn't hold the TF10 guys behind, I would have probably not won. So yeah, big thanks to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when your team told you to pit for the intermediates, did you think that was going to go horrendously and you were going to lose the race and have a terrible race? Or did you see that as an opportunity to get a really great result, like a win?
If there's rain, you have to, it's 50-50. So I was 100% for Inters. Because yeah, why not? You have to try, yeah. But yeah, it worked perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it did work absolutely perfectly. I don't expect you're expecting the same result next time out, but in terms of the remainder of the calendar, are you feeling confident? Are you feeling like this is maybe something to build upon?
Oh, of course, man, of course. We have to keep it going next week. So yeah, maybe the results get even not bad than today, but when we normally finish, hopefully that gets a bit better.
Absolutely. Well, we'll look to see. Any further questions from you, Sappy?
Not from me. Just a brilliant race weekend from both of you in the team, and hopefully it's the start of a bit of momentum because that points haul is going to be massive for you guys in the championship. And even if I'm not here, I'm looking forward to seeing how you make the rest of the season work in your favour coming off for tonight.
Yes, thank you guys.
Lovely. Go and enjoy it, guys. Enjoy the really solid result. I'm sure you've got a lot of people and a lot of amazing strategists to go and thank for that one. Go and enjoy it.
Go well, man. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, let's now hear from Mark Schluter, who I have no doubt we are going to catch mid-conversation as well. Mark Schluter, can you hear us?
Yes.
Lovely. Well, that's definitely quite the interesting race, and maybe not the race that I think anyone was expecting. The rain really did come out of nowhere. Our telemetry at one point was saying no rain, and then the next, there was rain on the circuit. Talk us through that final lap. How close were you to victory?
Very, very close. But yeah, unfortunately, the straight not long enough. Not long enough. And I think I needed one more lap, then I would have had him. But yeah, I mean, still a good result for the team with double podium and FVR having a shocker of a race. So I guess we can still be happy, even though for myself, for my ego, I would have loved to win.
Absolutely, I'm sure taking the win would have been the cherry on top for what was a great weekend for you in TF10. How difficult was it to get past those EVEs? Obviously, we're used to seeing them maybe a bit further down the order. Were you finding that it was quite difficult to overtake them, especially in the tricky conditions? Or were you playing it quite calm and conservative just because of the huge opportunity to gain heaps of points versus FER?
I mean, yeah, I'm playing. I'm always playing it kind of cautious, waiting for my chance and not dive bombing from 400 meters behind and hope we don't get each other out of the race. So yeah, but it was just getting this P2 P3 home at least and get the big points gain over FER. So yeah, I think we could have maybe got A1-2 if we were a bit more aggressive, but yeah, it is what it is.
Absolutely. Sappy, questions from you?
I mean, for one, brilliant weekend. Came out of qualifying in P7, and throughout the race and different circumstances notwithstanding, you made it work for the team in a great way with, as you said, the double podium. And considering the performance out of tonight, both from yourself and Brzezinski, but also looking at FVR, of course, P14 and a DNF, meaning that they're taking next to no points today. How confident are you guys feeling in the championship? Obviously, you've got 4 rounds to go, including the Mystery GP. How confident are we at this stage? Because that points gap is going to grow from this point.
Yeah, we will have to see. I mean, in these last 4 rounds, everything can happen. It could be another horrible race overall for the people watching, like Mexico or something like that. I mean, there's always gonna be chaos involved at some point. So I think we just need to still go race by race and not celebrate too much that we are now so much ahead, because that can swing around quickly again if we have one unlucky race.
Well, that's a very respectable way to look at it. And I guess final question from me before I hand it back. In light of the remaining 4 rounds, we've got China, Mystery, and then Saudi, along with Abu Dhabi. Any of those particular races stand out to you, be that for a good or a bad reason? Do any of them stick out?
Not really. China is not. I don't like the track. I'm quite decent on it, and the others I think are also quite decent. Yeah, it should be a decent race, but I think not a decent qualifying for me. So I'm struggling on most tracks with getting a good lap together, but I'm always gonna make that up in a race.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, commiserations on not being able to take the win, but thank you very much for playing an iconic role in what has been probably one of the best races of competitive Speed Series ever. Go and enjoy the podium. I know it doesn't mean as much as the race win, but go and enjoy it and take care, and we'll hopefully see you next time out.
Thank you.
Well, that has probably been one of the most chaotic and one of the best races I have ever bared witness to in the 6 years that I have been casting. Oh, that makes me feel really old all of a sudden. But that is sensational. What a race we've had. And as you say, Sappy, we still have 4 more rounds of this to go. I'm not sure I'm going to survive. Oh, my Discord's closed. Oh, no. Oh, I have made a grave mistake and I have accidentally closed my Discord, so we can't hear Sappy.
Of casting under your belt, oh, you
Sappy,
sweet summer child.
Rewind 20 seconds because I accidentally closed Discord.
Oh, well, lovely. Good to hear it. Well, you can't talk to me about being old when it comes to casting. 6 years is drop in the water, my sweet summer child. But coming back to the series for a moment, 4 rounds left, a clear set of championship protagonists, a big shake-up in terms of the mid-pack and the bottom of the pack, practically flipping a lot of the established battles on their heads.
Yeah.
The final races of this season are looking to be absolutely immense.
I know. I'm so looking forward to this, and I hope everybody at home has as well. It has been probably one of the most amazing races to cast. I am so glad that I have had you alongside me, Ben, because it has been such a great race. It has been a phenomenal adventure. It has been one of the most chaotic races I think we will ever bear witness to, and it has had one of the most chaotic results I think we will ever bear witness to as well. What can FVR do to respond to a really solid result from TF10, and is this a building block that Aversio Racing need to take themselves to new heights and blast themselves into that stratosphere? Well, the result tonight certainly suggests that it could be a sign of things to come, but a bit of luck had to go their way for it to happen. But from myself, and I'm sure from Ben as well, thank you very much for joining us for round day of Competitive Speed Series, our biggest ever stream. Until next time when we return for China, round 9, and hopefully Frost will be alongside me once again. Bye-bye.
Welcome back to the Competitive Speed Series.
The absolute carnage on this final lap. 5 red lights here in Miami. Can they regain that place?
I cannot believe my eyes.
Who comes out on top? Down the inside into Casio Triangle. This could end in disaster.
Zach Miles taking the lead. It was an all-or-nothing approach for the TF10 team.
And this could be crucial for NVR.
A race to remember for Jeremy Gallagher.
And they are officially the champions of the season.
It does not get closer than that. What a race. What a season.